Hi everyone, Wismeril here. Today I'm back with another video in the old school vibrations when I used to do recorded videos in English, and when you were able to hear my French accent and getting to cope with that. Today I want to talk about the PTR for Season 4 and the plans that I have for this very exciting, for all those very exciting changes that are going to hit Season 4 of Diablo 4. So I have 4 builds and 2 concepts that I really want to try out and see what I can do with them during this 1 week of PTR. As a reminder, PTR starts on April the 2nd and will end on April the 9th. And during this 1 week, there are a few things that I really want to try out. Like, I've been very inspired by a few items, and I theory crafted a lot of builds already that I want to try out. Please note that the patch notes for the PTR have not been released yet. We are Monday. I'm expecting them to be released tomorrow, Tuesday. So I'm releasing that ahead of time, but I don't have like the full knowledge about everything that's going to change. I only have the hints that were given during the campfire chat. So the first build that I really want to try out during PTR will be the new Frozen Orb build, thanks to these new amulets that are going to allow builds with Frozen Orb and Conjuration proccing each other. This is very rare, like a proc proccing something else, proccing another proc. The latest example we had on that was with the Firewall and the Meteor enchantment. Meteor enchantment could proc Firewall enchantment, and this proc could proc Meteor enchantment. So it's like one enchantment could proc the second enchantment, and this proc could proc back the first enchantment. This is very rare in ARPGs. Usually developers won't allow a loop like that. And the latest example we've seen was this one for the Sorcerer, and this new unique amulet will be another of those loops, so it's very inspiring for theory crafters like me to try and make the most out of this. So what does it say? Every time a Frozen Orb explodes, there is a 50% chance that it will conjure a random conjuration. This procced conjuration, when it hits on a lucky hit, it has a 100% chance to fire a Frozen Orb at a nearby enemy. And this Frozen Orb that's been fired has a 50% chance, when it explodes, to spawn a Conjuration. So there's a very interesting loop that can scale your damage very hard into the late game, and that's the first thing that I really want to try out. So I already theory crafting a few different things, and I really want to try out this build during the PTR. So it will be an endgame build with Frozen Orb to try and make the most optimal, the most perfect build, and have it deal as much damage as possible, because hooray, finally we're getting the rifts once again. After the failed Abattoir of Zir, we're getting a new iteration of the Diablo 3 rifts back into Diablo 4. So there's another kind of unlimited ceiling when it comes to your damage and your survivability, and it gives theory crafters like me like a valid reason to theory craft the most perfect build we can, because we really want to scale our damage to the maximum in order to reach the highest tiers of the what's it called, the pit, and while not neglecting survivability and utility and mobility. So there is this first build that I really want to try out based on the new amulet and going into the late game with Frozen Orb. The second build I want to try on the PTR will be a leveling build for Frozen Orb, because with the new Codex of Power updates that, by the way, will not be available during PTR. This is one of the only features that will not be able to test during PTR, but everything else should be there. With bugs and subject to changes, of course. This is a test realm. There is, with the new Codex of Power, there's been a change in the way you can level up your first character in a season from level 1 to level 100. Before, we were tied to the Codex of Power because we don't really want to take into account RNG when we are planning for a leveling with around like 18 hours of gameplay from level 1 to level 100. There's not much room for RNG, you see, so I was really using the Codex of Power and not really taking into account the eventual legendary drops that I would find along the way. Now with the new Codex of Power, it's completely different because any legendary that's not in the codex that you would loot along the way, and when you salvage this legendary, it goes into the Codex of Power. This is tremendous change because before, say you loot one of those, the frozen memory, okay, you're lucky, you can imprint it once on an item and then you're done. Maybe you imprinted it on a sacred item, but hey, you're 1 tier 4 right now, so you don't want to have sacred items anymore. You have ancestral ones and you can't re-imprint it. With the new Codex of Power, this problem is gone, and with the new Hell Tides available from World Tier 1 and World Tier 2, you could start your leveling without having to spend hours in the domain tunnels, but instead doing Hell Tides, target farming some legendaries, getting them, extracting them in the in the Codex of Power, and having that available for the rest of your leveling. And this is huge because, like, if you would find this Frozen Memory legendary and the Frozen Orbit legendary, bang, you have a very solid Frozen Orb build that you can use for leveling all along the way. And I really like cold builds for leveling because of what's possible with the Paragon table. When you go into the cold route, you have access to huge damage multipliers early on. A 30% damage multiplier like this one, a 15% like this one, and you know, like you can really early and late with close to nothing with level 1 glyphs, you can assemble a very, very powerful build very early on without having to level up your glyphs to level 15 or level 21. So in my book, the cold builds really have an edge when it comes to using them in the leveling process. And now that the Codex of Power will be fixed for the start of Season 4, there's like a lot of different builds you'll be able to try out for your leveling session to 100. One of them being the Frozen Orb build. There's also another very interesting change that will hit Season 4. The experience given by the world tier you're in will be changed. So in World Tier 2, you used to have a 20% experience multiplier. It's going to change to 50%. In World Tier 3, it used to be 100%. It's going to change to 150%. And in World Tier 4, it's going to change from 200% to 250% multiplicative. So I'm expecting with this change and a few other tricks that I might use to reduce the amount of hours from level 1 to level 100 on your first character on a season to drop from 18 hours to somewhere between 12 plus hours, 12 to 18. That's where I'm expecting to land for a first character run to level 100, speed run, should I say. So there's a world where you'd start fresh, you'd go into World Tier 2, do some Hell Tides until level 40. Level 40, do Capstone Dungeon 1, switch to World Tier 3. World Tier 3 and early World Tier 4, from level 40 to level 70, you would do Nightmare Dungeons until you reach level 70, because level 70 you can equip your ancestral items, and then level 70 you would clear a tier 45 Nightmare Dungeon where monsters gonna be level 100, and by doing that you will unlock the quest leading you to the pit being the new rifts and / greater rifts. And the cold builds are definitely able to, with a level 70 character, to clear a tier 45 nightmare dungeon where monsters gonna be level 100, so that's a plus 30 levels gap, right? You can do it with any cold build, with all those multipliers you can have with level 1 glyphs. You're good to go. And then when you are level 70 or 71 and you enter the pit, this is where you finish your leveling from level 70 to 100. So with all those changes combined, I'm pretty sure we can hit a sweet spot between 12 hours to 18 hours of playtime to reach level 100 on your first sorcerer. And I'll be trying out a few different builds, and Frozen Orb is one of them. I used to play Ice Shards for leveling because the codex allowed this to be the best cold build that I would play. But with the new fresh and shiny Frozen Orb, where finally after 9 months in the game, they changed the Frozen Orb skill, where when you fire a Frozen Orb, it's not going a set distance, it's actually going where your mouse pointer is, like what the you know? So they finally changed it and made Frozen Orb viable, and I can't wait to test this leveling build. So that's the second build I'm going to try out in the PTR. By the way, if you want to see the results of all those tests, subscribe to the channel, because that's where I will upload all my findings, and then that's where I'm going to upload all the build guides that I'm going to make. I'm a theory crafter, I'm a perfectionist, I make builds for, you know, every single paragon point. I think for 10 minutes, for every single skill point, for every single affix on the gear, for every legendary. I question the build every so often on why this, why not that. Is this better than that? I make mathematics calculations until I find what is perfect to me, and this is what I like to do. I'm a theory crafter. So if you want to see that, subscribe to the channel, because this is where I'm going to upload all those findings, all those build guides. Build guides will be multilingual. I'm still trying to iterate over these 6 language build guides videos. I don't know what you think about it, but that's something I'm using with AI and I'm having a lot of fun with. So I'm going to iterate on that once again. The next build I'm going to try out in the PTR is the trash killer concept. So I've been playing Diablo 3 a hell lot. So if you've been playing Diablo 3 also, you're familiar with Greater Rift and Rift. And for Greater Rift pushing, when you are playing with teammates, like multiplayer used to be a lot more efficient than solo playthrough. And when you were playing in a group, we were each having roles. So usually there were a party of 4, 2 supports. I'm not sure they will make their returns in Diablo 4, because I'm not sure how viable supports are at the moment. But what I'm sure of is the roles of Trash Killer and RGK, which stands for Rift Guardian Killer, which I'm going to refer to as Boss Killer. So the main 2 DPS sources you would have in Diablo 3 were the Trash Killer and the Boss Killer. In Diablo 4, in the current metagame, it's very easy to have a build that deals a lot of damage to many enemies. But there's a scarcity, there are very few builds that are very good single target damage. So most of the builds in Diablo 4 will not be able to push very high on the leaderboards of the Rift system of the pit, because of the fact that only a few of them have enough single target damage to push very far. This problem is solved if you play in only a party of 2. Having one boss killer, having like the best single target damage in the game. Is it barbarian? Is it rogue? Is it I don't know yet what class is going to have the best boss killer. I can tell you for sure, I don't think it's the sorcerer, because the sorcerer only has the Icepax Blizzard, which we're going to talk about in a second. But for this third build, I want to iterate on the trash killer role in Diablo 4, because I think the sorcerer might be one of the best class for I should define, I'm sorry, trash killer is like you want to scale your damage with the density of monsters. In Diablo 3, there was a concept called area damage, like a mechanic called area damage. The more monsters around, the more damage you would do, because each monster would then damage the surrounding monsters. So you could scale your damage with the density. You would group up as many enemies as you can in a single area on a very open and very wide map, and then you would blow them up all at the same time in a way that they would deal damage to each other, and then your damage will scale with the number of individual monsters you're hitting. In Diablo 4, the Sorcerer class has access to some amazing tools when it comes to scaling your damage with density. And I believe the Sorcerer could be one of the best class for scaling your damage with density, hence being one of the best trash killers in the game. So that's the third build I want to iterate on. I want to try a few different things. I have a lot of ideas. I theory crafted a lot of things, and I want to double check things, and we'll see the numbers. We'll see how much damage I can scale with density. And I'm going to try to answer this simple question: is the Sorcerer the best trash killer in the game for Season 4? So that's what we're going to see with this build and a few others that I theory crafted for the trash killer role. Next one, so that's build number 4, if I'm not mistaken. Today we're talking about 4 builds and 2 concepts. Build number 4 is what I believe will be the best solo pushing build for the Sorcerer class when it comes to the pit, the rifts, the crater rifts. And that build is Ice Spikes Blizzard, because that's, in my book, the best single target damage. I don't think anything is close to that, like your ball lightning builds and anything else. I don't think they reach the level of damage you can do to a single target. So I think Ice Spikes Blizzard will be the best build for the Sorcerer class as we move to Season 4 pit. So I've played that build a lot in Season 3. So I'm going to incorporate all the changes I read on the patch notes and make it like the best build I can come up with in terms of everything, Paragon, skill tree, items, affixes, and the new season theme when it is revealed. And I think this will be probably the build I'm going to main in Season 4, unless the patch notes says otherwise. At this stage, I believe this is the best build for the Sorcerer in Season 4. And if it's still the case after the patch notes hit, then that's what I'm going to be playing in the PTR, and that's what I'm going to document and make multilingual build guides. So that's what you can expect to find on the channel. So that's it for the 4 builds. Then on the PTR during this 1 week, I want to try 2 concepts. So the first one is related to the greater affixes that you can find on ancestral, legendary, and unique items. So it's like 1 or 2 of them, or maybe even 3 of them, all 3, can roll as greater affixes. So it's like in Last Epoch having exalted items, where this affix would get a 50% multiplier. So for instance, if you have a CDR roll on an item, a 10.3%, if they keep the same value, with a 50% multiplier, that's around 15% cooldown reduction, right? And you can further upgrade that, I'm sorry, that's not tempering, that's masterworking, where 3 times you have 1 chance out of 125, 1 chance out of 125 to, when you upgrade your item 12 times, to 3 times in a row, further upgrade this cooldown reduction roll by 25% every time. And I think we can reach pretty insane values, right? Like for instance, like my target at the moment in the game, the maximum amount of CDR you can have on a Sorcerer is 48% when everything is max rolled. I believe that if you are lucky enough, well, you have one chance out of 125 on every item, so that's really like a try hard and late game build. But I believe that if you reach 83% of cooldown reduction, and say you have a 20 seconds skill, so 83% cooldown reduction would make a 20 seconds skill cooldown be 3.4 seconds. And if you achieve those 83% cooldown reduction, or maybe a little bit more, like 84 or 85% cooldown reduction, then guess what? You have permanent uptime on Flame Shield, because Flame Shield cooldown is 20 seconds. And if you put as many points as you can have its duration last 3.4 seconds. So having exactly 83% cooldown reduction is, if you're fast enough, permanent uptime on invulnerability and uncontrollability, if ever this word exists. So permanent uptime on Flame Shield. And if you have 84 or even better 85% cooldown reduction, you have around 200 to 300 milliseconds to cast the spell every time it reaches its end, which is a lot more comfortable when it comes to permanent uptime. So that's what I'm going to play with. That's the first concept I want to try out. How much CDR can you stack on a sorcerer with those greater affixes and masterworking, and can you reach invulnerability thanks to Flame Shield? So that's the first concept I want to try out on the PTR. The second concept I want to try on the PTR is if, or even if not, I succeed with the cooldown stuff. Of course, we're talking about like a super late game thing. I want to try out a more reasonable approach for an endgame build, which will make you near unkillable when it comes to those very high tiers of the pit. We're talking about tier 200, where you get those juicy rewards, right? You have to clear a tier 200 rift pit tier, I'm sorry, and then you have to beat tier level 200 Uber boss. So it's like an Uber boss, right? Because it's level 200. So I want to see how realistic it is to pack enough survivability in your build to have a template, to have a shell that I can reuse in other builds, where it's gonna be, you wanna survive tier 200 to tier 250, here's the shell, here's the template that you need to implement, and insert your damage here. You wanna play Blizzard, Ice Spikes? Insert it here. You want to play Fireball? If ever Fireball is enough to clear, you have the damage, then insert it here. So that's the second concept I want to try out. And this concept will revolve around reaching 85% maximum resistance to all elements. Because like your cap, your current cap is 70%, which can be further extended to 85%. So if you reach 85% maximum resistance on all elements and your armor capped means having 85% damage reduction to physical damage. So which is you have 85% damage reduction to all elements plus physical damage. And on top of that, you have a decent health pool, whether it is 15, 20, 25,000 life. And on top of that, you have a survivability, what is it called? Recovery, I'm sorry. You have recovery with the sorceress done with shields, with barrier. So like you have a barrier that goes on and on and on, where they hit you on that barrier, you recover it, they hit you, you recover it. This is recovery, and it's a multiplier of your toughness. So if you see, if I can assemble a realistic version of this shell without having to go very far in the late game, like having to have those perfect greater affixes and this one chance out of 125 that you're gonna hit the jackpot and upgrade it 3 times in a row to 25%. If we can have something like more reasonable, like you're not going to have to farm hundreds of hours and reach breakpoints that will allow you to comfortably run level 200 of the pits, then that's the second concept I want to try out, and I will post my answers here. Because if I fail to achieve that second concept, it means that you're gonna have to dodge everything. Every single skill shot, every single arrow from a random skeleton in one corner of the room, you'll have to dodge that, because otherwise it will one-shot you in tier 200. So it may be the case, you know, there used to be builds where, hey, you have to be Neo in Matrix and you have to dodge everything because everything one-shots you, but I hope we are not like going into that world when it comes to the new Greater Rift system, the pit. So I want to have like a reasonable amount of defenses, allowing you to hit a few shots before dying or being close to invulnerable if I can reach that stage. So those are the plans, those 4 builds and those 2 concepts are the plans I have for the PTR of Season 4 of Diablo 4. I'm going to run that April 2 to April 9, and so from April 2 to May the 15th, I'm not sure what's the Season 4 release date, I'm going to post on this channel all my findings, all the build guides in 6 different languages where I can. I'm going to improve the dictionaries I have here and there for my artificial intelligence that I'm using here and there to do some automated tasks. I'm really trying out to improve the quality on that, and this is what you can expect me to have before season starts. You should have build guides, leveling guides, and all my findings, mechanics and reports of various stuff. So that's what I have in store for you today. This has been Wismeril signing off. I hope you guys are as excited as I am for all those new changes coming to Diablo 4. We still need endgame systems, but hey, at least the mid-game systems are being fixed. And that's a lot of quality of life. That's a lot of room for excitement about theory crafting and stuff. Still, like, the Rift is one good endgame system in my book, but there has to be only ones. Other ones, I'm sorry. Anyway, this video is too long already. I'll see you guys in the next video. You guys have a good one.